Greetings. Welcome to Into the Light. My name is Donald Schmid, and today's topic is integrity. For many years, I was out there, way out there, and I came and went as I pleased. We would get together with the guys on a Friday or Saturday night. We would play cards at my friend's house. We would sometimes play cards all night, or go to the racetrack and then play cards, and then go back to the racetrack. And I didn't have any. I didn't have any integrity. I didn't have any passion, and I didn't have any purpose. And I didn't know about any of it. I knew that the more I had, the more I wanted, and I would work hard all week and then blow my money and not invest in others. And as I grew older, I remember when I was growing up, my parents. I grew up in the '60s, and when we would eat dinner, they would tell us, you're not going to get dessert if you don't eat all your food. And your eyes are bigger than your stomach. Or waste not, want not. And there's orphans in Africa and around the world that could be eating that food. And I looked at it more like as a guilt trip. I really didn't. I went to Catholic school in like the third grade, and we had the Montfort Fathers, and the Montfort Fathers were missionaries, and they would go all over the world, or they would have a parish in America, and they would help others. They would help the poor, and they would do outreaches, and I was intrigued by the missionaries. And I mentioned on a prior show that one of the missionaries went and he wound up dying in a foreign land. And I wasn't intrigued with his death, but as I grew older, something was tugging at my heartstrings, and I'm not exactly sure when that was. It might have been around 1994 or 1995. In 1994, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. A week later, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And they were in two different hospitals. And I would go visit them. One was in one hospital, and my father didn't know my mother had cancer. My mother didn't know my father had cancer. And, we would go visit, me and my sister would go visit them, and we kept it, we kept it going, and we kept it up. And I want to say the name of the show is Into the Light, and it's based on a verse in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2. It says, "The people who walked in the darkness have seen a great light." And I saw that light. I don't remember exactly when, but I want to talk about what is integrity. It says integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. Now, many of you who have watched prior shows know my story that it began when I was like 13 years old. My dad took me to the racetrack, and we went in for I think maybe they had 8 races. We went for the 6th, we went for the 7th, we went for the 8th. And he said pick one, and I picked like the 6th, and the 6-horse won. And the next race he picked another one. He said pick another one. I picked the 4, that one. And one horse paid like $14, the other one paid $10. In the third race, which was the last race, was the 6th, 7th, and 8th, a horse was in front the whole way, and then he got tired. So being introduced to racing at an early age, I took a liking to it, and I wound up working at the track when I was 18. And it says here that the one who walks in integrity will experience a fearless confidence in life, but the one who is devious will eventually be exposed. So I was making $70, $75 a week in 1972, and I got to go. uh, We used to take care of the horses in the morning, and we had to take care of the dirt, and it was called a shed row, and we would take care of the dirt, make it look spiffy and water it and keep it flat because when you come in the morning, the hot walkers would walk around the track and walk around the track and walk around the barn, and it would leave holes. So we would take a rake or we'd take a smoother, and we would smooth it out. And I did my horses like really fast, and I would run to the kitchen. And when I went to the kitchen, I had two decks of cards. I had a red deck and a blue deck, and we played blackjack. And whoever got blackjack, if they had the money, got to take the bank. And I used to start off being a bank. I maybe start with $5 or $6, and we play for 25 cents, 50 cents, or a dollar, which was different than it is nowadays. And it was good to have the bank, and if there was blackjack, we paid 2 to 1 on blackjack because we took the push. Like if we had 20 and you had 20, the casinos give you a break because in the long run, they're just going to take your money anyway. And it says, Proverbs 28, verse 6, better is the poor who walks in his uprightness than he who is perverse in his way, though he be rich. Many, many, many people, we watched lifestyles of the rich and famous and everything, and people wanted to be like Hollywood, and they wanted to be movie stars, and they wanted to be baseball players or football players or basketball players, and they just threw caution to the wind, and they didn't have integrity. For me, integrity is doing what you say you're going to do, keeping my word. And um, when I was working in Manhattan, I was working in a church. I showed up. I wasn't working in a church yet. What had happened was I developed a relationship with the pastors and with the staff, and I would show up early to set up for church, stay late. At the time I didn't know it was integrity. I just took it like as being part of my job, part of my assignment. And I volunteered for a long time. I guess I volunteered for maybe 4 years. And the first couple of times I would just do it. And there was this one time they wanted me to come in the morning, or they wanted me to come in. I wanted to go in the morning, and they wanted me to go in the afternoon, or vice versa. I'm not sure. And I went in and I helped out, and I got done. It was like really, really hot. I was on Fulton Street and Broadway. I had just left the Soup Man's Kitchen. I went to Singular, which was on the corner of Broadway and Fulton. It was 110 degrees. I believe integrity is listening to what somebody else tells you to do and saying you're going to do it, and you do it. So I heard this voice that I hadn't heard before. And it said, go to the Marriott. And I said, I'm not going to the Marriott. And then he said, whoever he was, I knew it wasn't me. And I knew it wasn't a negative voice because it didn't shout. It wasn't full of fear. It was just like level, go to the Marriott. So I said, dude, not going to the Marriott. It's hot. Go downstairs, get on the 8 train. It's cool. I go home. Have a nice day. Not having it, not going away. Go to the Marriott. Go to the Marriott. So I go to Burger King on the corner over there where the fire department is and the Chinese restaurant, and I get a large strawberry shake. And God said, you know, he made man and everything, and he said, you know, and on this day he made man, and it was good. Well, this strawberry shake was one of those it was good moments. However, the voice was still being persistent and insistent. And finally, I went to the Marriott and I went up Rector Street and I went to get in and I couldn't get in. And I knew that if you went through Starbucks or a restaurant, you could get in, get to the front. And I'm annoyed. I'm hot. I said, which way? And he says, go to the left. Go to the left. There's a woman. She's having a nervous breakdown. She's got a shopping cart full of carpet, and she wants to negotiate the West Side Highway. She lives on the other side of the West Side Highway. So I listened to the voice, and I went there, and I said, I believe God sent me to help you. And she looked at me and she said, I just prayed to God for someone to help me. And here you are. And I don't know if I got teary-eyed, but it was kind of amazing that as persistent and insistent as this voice was, now there's a verse in the Bible that says, this is the way, walk ye in it. That's basically what I did. As much as I kicked, stomped, and complained, I completed my assignment, which was to go to the Marriott. But I didn't know that was my assignment until it was completed. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it made sense for me because this was like the very first time that I heard an impression or a voice and I followed through on it. So I walked up, I accommodated the shopping cart and I walked her across the street and, you know, I told her I wasn't working and she wanted to bless me. And she went to a person. I says, listen, I helped you because I believe God told me to help you. And he's my reward. However, I'm not going to steal your blessing because I know that if you help somebody out, God will help you out. You know, there's a law called seed time and harvest. You take a seed, you plant it, time comes, you know, you water it, it grows, and it produces a harvest. It's like being a farmer. If you plant corn, you're going to get corn. If you plant something else, you're going to get something else. But, you know. So she reached into her purse. She took out a brand new $50 bill. You know, I invited her to church. We met in the Marriott and everything. And that was it. You know, I got on a train. I went home. And I was thankful because I wasn't working, and I believe that if you love the Lord with all your heart, and you don't lean on your own understanding, and you acknowledge him in all your ways, he'll show you the way to go. And he showed me the way to go. It says, try hard, Proverbs 11, verse 27. Try hard to do right, and you will win friends. Go looking for trouble, and you will find it. Trust in your wealth, and you will be a failure. But God's people will prosper like healthy plants. So, lifestyles of the rich and famous, everybody wants to be rich. We had a saying back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But God says, the wealth of the sinner, lifestyles of the rich and famous, is laid up for the righteous man of integrity, the one that keeps his word, that shows up all the time, who goes the extra mile, who doesn't look for rewards from other people. You know, it's real easy to be in a church, a congregation, and somebody knows that you have a need, you know, and God supplies all our needs according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus, you know, and there's a lot of people who don't know the Lord, and they from the gimme, 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 my name is Jimmy school. You know, Luke 16:10, it says, one who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful today. I'm going forward a day at a time. I show up, I suit up, I show up, and I grow up. I'm not the person I was back in the day. But I want to share a principle about he who is faithful in little will be faithful over much. And I was in a homeless shelter in Bushwick on Porter and Johnson Avenue, and I tell this story before, but I don't think I told this particular story. It was early in the morning. The guys were getting ready to go to work. I don't know if I had kitchen duty that day, or, you know, cafeteria duty. And on the table, there's a pen and a dime. Now, how many people are going to claim the pen and the dime as their own? The answer is probably the majority of people. However, I had been aware of this verse that if you were faithful in little, you'd get more because you were faithful with the little. I went to the security desk and I turned in the pen and the dime because it wasn't mine, because it didn't belong to me. The person who it belonged to probably would never get it back, but when you do good, you get good, you know. And I gave it back, you know. And years would go by, and I had remembered the principle, and I was like, I was just retired, and I took a partial pension or something. Took the partial pension. I was getting so much. the company was changing hands or something. And what happened was we wound up, they told us, either take half the pension or you get no pension at all, which we didn't have a choice. So I took half the pension. And years would go by. And I think it was like 2014 when I get a call on the phone. No, I looked in my bank account and it was way too much money in there. Or I think maybe they sent me a letter. It said, "Dear Mr. Schmid, um, we resolved the class action lawsuit against the owners, and you're going to be getting some money by October, you know." So it must have been like September 30th, and I checked my bank account and I says, holy guacamole, there's like a lot of zeros behind the numbers. So I call up the pension, and I said, hi, this is Donald Schmid. I says, I got the letter and there's a whole lot of money in my bank account. I says, I was very surprised. And the woman that answered the phone said, Mr. Schmidt, because she knew how much it was, because, like she pulled it up. If I had that much money, I'd be very surprised too. So I says, excuse me, this isn't her real name. I said, Linda, could you tell me, we got the back pay, and could you tell me how much I'm going to get? And she says, Mr. Schmid, you're going to get double of what they were giving you for the rest of your life. I said, thank you, and I hung up. Now, prior to that, I kept the principle of he who is faithful with little will be faithful in much. So what I did was, with the windfall, I asked God, I says, Daddy owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He owns everything. And he's not going to trust me with more than I can handle. So if I'm not faithful with $1, I'm not going to be faithful with 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, 100,000 or a minute or a million. But I believe that day set forth a principle of the doors would open for more because of my faithfulness with the pen and a dime. And it might sound silly and minuscule to you, but when I got off the phone, with that woman, everything was restored. I want to read a couple of verses from this book, aptly called Integrity. It says, the author of Proverbs has a word of caution to say about this. A good and honest life is a blessed memorial. Proverbs 10:7 in the Message Bible. The integrity of the honest keeps them on track. Proverbs 11:3, Message Bible. Still later in Proverbs, we read, an honest life shows respect for God. Proverbs 14:2. Luke would much later record these words of Jesus. If you're honest in small things, you will be honest in big things. Luke 16:10, the Message Bible. I grew up in Ozone Park. We had a lot of bars, a lot of delis, and a lot of candy stores and supermarkets. I might have been 11 or 12 years old. And there was this candy store. And they liked me in the candy store. And I started out making the newspapers on the weekend. You get up at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning. You'd go, you'd help the boss open up the store. You'd make the papers, but the papers then was like the Daily News and the Times. And the Times was huge. You know, it had like different segments to it, you know? And one of my first jobs before I was allowed to get the $5 was I had to volunteer. And I volunteered to sweep the sidewalk. And it sounds small, but if they didn't keep the sidewalk clean, they'd get a fine from sanitation, a hefty fine. I don't know how much it was in, 1966, So swept the sidewalk for nothing. And I got rewarded with candy or Malters because I was too young to get paid, And I swept the sidewalk and swept the curb and everything, cigarettes and everything. And 40 years later, I would get a job in Manhattan as a doorman. And one of the duties was, in nice weather, keep the front of the store clean so you didn't get a ticket from sanitation. And I was making like $17 an hour. And it was a holiday. And the first thing they tell you when you become a doorman is, we don't take off holidays. And I said, why? And they said, because it's double time and a half. So 17 plus 17 plus 850 is 4250. So the same kid who was 11 or 12 sweeping the candy store is now sweeping Lexington Avenue between 23rd and 24th Street, getting $42 an hour. Why? Because of the principle. I was faithful in little. I got to be faithful in much more. I want you to know that I didn't always know Jesus. And it says in the word, he who confesses with his mouth and believes in his heart that Jesus died for us will be saved from a hopeless way of thinking and living. And Jesus was faithful to the point of death to go to the cross so he could take off filthy rags and give us his righteousness. I'm blessed, I'm grateful. It's good to be alive. We thank you for watching Into the Light. We hope to see you next time. God bless you all.